Hi there, BookTube. It's near a week into April, and I haven't yet done a wrap-up of my reading in March. And what did I enjoy? What were the delights? What were the discoveries? Were there any disappointments? So let's go for it. Now, March was an odd month for various reasons, and one oddity was that I read 18 books, or finished 18 books in March, which is a lot for me, but that is misleading because 5 of them were a sequence of YA comics, graphic novels, which I will come to in a bit. So it's sort of, not really 18, if you know what I mean. And the other reason it was an odd month was because it started well, and then I broke my arm, and so I had to sort of adjust my reading plans a bit because I couldn't read at all. I mean, doped up on painkillers and in loads of pain, and had to sort of find things that were, switched to audio, and had a bit of sort of easy read, brain candy, sort of easily digestible stuff for a week or so. Then, of course, I was sort of stuck, not able to do much, and got extra reading time for a week or so. And, one way and another, the months worked out okay in reading terms. The non-reading bookish highlight of the month came at the beginning, when I took part in a meeting of UK booktubers in London, organised by Katie Books and Things. It was a wonderful day. Various people have done lovely sort of vlogs and videos about it. I failed completely to film anything on the day, so but I was too busy having a lovely time. So there we go. I bought a few things that day. Tilly was there as well. She bought a few things too. One of the things that she bought was the most recent volume of the Heartstopper series, volume number 5, of which more. So I went back to stay with Tilly for a few days after the Booktuber meetup, and it just felt like the perfect opportunity to finally find out what everyone's been going on about, talking about Heartstopper over the last sort of few years. It's a series of 5 volumes that have come out between 2018 and 2023, end of 2023, the 5th one, and by Alice Oseman. And now I've read them. Well, I thought I'd just read one, and I ended up doing all 5, one after another, in a sort of gorging myself on them. It's kind of YA. It's about 2 teenage boys and their, kind of falling in love, their relationship, the ups and downs of that, working out their identities. It's charming and heartwarming, and full of lovely plot and character. And I really liked the artwork as well. The graphic style is really appealing. You get a lot out of the sort of expressions and so on in of the characters. There's a point to it being both drawn and written, I suppose, is what I'm saying. So, if you haven't been there yet, if you haven't tried out Heartstopper, go for it. It's delightful. I was also pleased to read that this month because I've been meaning to read some things for MJ's 24 and 24 banned books challenge, to try and read 24 books that have been somewhere banned or challenged over the course of 2024. And I've done 5 now. I'm winning. I don't know if I'll get to read 24, but it is an issue that is dear to my heart. So what I will say is I'm going to mention quite a few kind of reading events, readathons and so on that I've taken part in March, and I won't try and sort of give the details of each of them. I'll mention them in passing, and then I'll try and put some details in the descriptions, because otherwise there'd be too much. Now, one of the books that I bought on that booktuber meetup, because obviously being a meeting of booktubers, what we did was we went on a bookshop crawl, of course, yeah. And one of the things that I bought was a little book called Ness, that's is written by Robert Macfarlane, a writer I love, and illustrated by Stanley Donwood. And it's kind of it's somewhere between a kind of a folk tale and a prose poem, with, as I say, these gorgeous woodcuts by Stanley Donwood that add a whole lot more to it. It's about Orford Ness in Suffolk, very particular landscape with an interesting history, sort of military installations now abandoned and returned to nature. A little gem that I really enjoyed. I would show it to you, but I left it behind for Tilly to read, so I don't have it. It's one of those books that was a beautiful object. Now, I read another book this month, which was absolutely a beautiful object, although also a wonderful piece of writing. And that's this, Blossomise by Simon Armitage. And this is illustrated by, get the name of the illustrator, Angela Harding. Just gorgeous accompanying illustrations. And it's a collection of poetry that is inspired by and celebrates blossom. So it's the perfect book for this time of year. It just came out, this month, or no, March maybe, so last month. And it's full of longer and shorter poems, a load of haiku about trees in blossom and what that means for us, and how they spring up in strange places, and the joy they bring. Hints of the Japanese sort of I'll say blossom obsession, celebration of cherry blossom in the spring. Absolutely gorgeous. Simon Armitage, brilliant poet. Now, I don't do kind of book hauly things on this channel, do I? But I do just want to say that because Steve ordered this from Faber and Faber, the publishers, it came with this, a truly lovely tea towel with some of the illustrations from the book on it. What a treat! I'm now not sure what to do with it. Do I dry out cups and cutlery with it, or do I just sort of keep it as a nice thing? It's a bit of a dilemma, isn't it? There we go. So that was my sort of proper poetry collection this month. Now, at the start of the month, I was finishing off my BookTube Prize reading. I was reading one of the groups for the octafinals, and the book that actually fell into March was Small Mercies by Dennis Lehane. It was actually bottom of the group for me, of my 6, only because it's a kind of straightforward, perfectly decent crime thriller type book, nothing, not bad, but kind of nothing special in a way, good of its type. If you want to see the 6 things I read and what I thought of them, and how I rated them, I've done a video specifically on that. There was some 4, I would say 4 books that I really enjoyed in the group. One book that I found really tiresome, although it's a very popular book, that was The Bee Sting by Paul Murray, and then the Dennis Lehane, which, as I say, was just fine, but nothing special. There you go. But one positive about reading, or one reason why I kept the Lehane for last and read it in March, was because March is also March Mystery Madness, and so that counted as one of my kind of crime reads in March, because I enjoy a bit of crime. It's something I enjoy. The second thing that I read, which fits the bill for March Mystery Madness, was a cut above, though, and that's Happiness Falls by Angie Kim. Came out in February, I think, 2020. No, it's a new book, 2024, and it is a mystery in that it's a missing person story, but it is so much more than that. Wonderful book. Tilly and I read it, both of us. because we're doing this thing of reading a sort of piece of new fiction each month in 2024 and making a discussion video about it. The video's on her channel, but I'll link to it below. We both thought it was, really first class. It is a crime novel, but it's also about families, about caring, about disability, about language, about the philosophy of happiness. And what drew me to sort of suggest that we read it was a central character in the book is a teenage boy who doesn't use speech to communicate. I won't say he's nonverbal, because actually he's not. He's got words, but he hasn't got speech. But the assumptions that people make about him because of that are key to the plot. If that's piqued your interest, watch the video that Tilly and I made. So then I did end up unexpectedly reading a third March Mystery Madness sort of choice, because after I broke the arm, as I say, I needed some sort of easy reading, say stuff that was a bit more brain candy, and so I picked up a book that I hadn't expected to, which was. But it's been lurking on my shelves for a while. And that's The Man Who Died Twice by Richard Osman. Now, that's the second in his series of kind of cozy crime sort of books about a group of elderly people that are living in this sort of sheltered housing kind of complex that are actually very smart sleuths busy solving murders. And great fun. Say, not, bit predictable, but that was just what I needed. It was also a good moment while I was sort of, slightly off my head on painkillers, to read something for middle grade March, because when you're feeling a bit miserable and not at your smartest, what can be better than going back to a much loved childhood book? And so that's what I did. I read Comet in Moominland by Tove Jansson. If you translated by Elizabeth Portch, must give the translator credit. If you haven't read any of the Moomin books by Tove Jansson, you should. If you've got children, read them to your children, but if you're an adult, you can read them too. She's one of those writers who can hit the spot for the age group, but also have something in there that speaks to an adult reader as well. Something about psychology and characters and lovely books. And so I just picked one of the series at random. But before I could even attempt to read either of those two, first few days I couldn't read at all. And that turned out to be a golden opportunity, because I had embarked on reading, before I broke the arm, my March of the Mammoth's Mammoth, and that was this. Anthony Trollope's The Last Chronicle of Barset. It's 800 plus pages, as is meant to be for your mammoth, and it's the 6th book in the Barsetshire Chronicles sequence by Trollope. So wonderful Victorian classic literature. And what I realised when I couldn't do anything else was it was just the thing to listen to as an audiobook. I read the version read by Timothy West. He's very good at voicing Trollope, and the thing about Trollope is there's lots in there to hold your interest. There's lots of plot, there's lots of characters, but the Barsetshire Chronicles series are relatively cosy and comfortable. It's not too challenging, just the kind of thing that you can enjoy listening to in a bit of a haze, as it were. So thank you, Timothy West, and thank you, Anthony Trollope, for getting me through a rather grim few days. Now, that was the only classic that I read this month, but I did read one backlist book, I suppose, and that was a book in translation, and that was The Housekeeper and the Professor by Yoko Ogawa, translated by Stephen Snyder, and that was originally published in 2003, so not one from ages ago, but more than 20 years. And it's quite short. It's a quiet novel, the way some Japanese novels can be, but charming and interesting. It's the premise is that our protagonist is a housekeeper, and she goes to work for a former maths professor who's had an acquired brain injury that means that his immediate memory, his short-term memory, only lasts for 70 minutes. So every day he has to remember and meet her for the first time and remember everything again. He has lots of little notes to help him kind of remember things. It's really interesting about, what impact does that have on you? Because he can still do higher level maths. There is a lot of maths in the book, and I think some people might find that off-putting, but I think the thing is not to get caught up in it in sense of worrying, do I understand this? It's more like just seeing the kind of symbolic beauty of the maths and what that means to the professor and how he shares it with her and with her young son, who he becomes very close to. Lovely little book. So, not a wow book, but one that I think will stick in my mind. Now, I've got 5 books left, and I have to say that they're all recent novels, all out in the last sort of 2 years, I guess, and they are all not necessarily brilliant, but they've all got a kind of a wow quality about them, I suppose. So I'll talk about them kind of vaguely in ascending order, I guess. So I'm going to start with Parasol Against the Axe by Helen Oyeyemi, which came out earlier this year, February maybe. And I say it's not that I liked it more than, say, something like Housekeeper and the Professor, but it's a very bold book. One of those books that, hits you like a ton of bricks. No, reading it is a roller coaster is a better analogy. It's about a hen weekend and marriage between 2 women in Prague, and but it's really about 2 of their friends, or one in particular, and it's kind of it's about Prague. Prague is a central character in it. It's kind of got a travelogue quality, but also it's about how your past actions can come back and really bite you on the bottom. So I made a video specifically, a single book review video of it. So if your interest is caught by that, have a look at that. Now, a book that was odd, as Parasol and Against the Axe was, but in a different way, was this one, which was one a kind friend of mine, Kay, lent me to read because she thought I might be, running out of books to read if I was lying around, feeling sorry for myself with the broken arm. Of course, I'm never running out of books to read, but a recommendation from Kay is one worth following up. So I did read it straight away, and it's Briefly a Delicious Life by Nell Stevens. And another queer book. It's came out in 2022. It was shortlisted for the Dylan Thomas Prize, that prize is really interesting one. It focuses on young writers, and the shortlist is out now. Have a look if you're interested in kind of newish and young writers. What can I say about this? Oh well, it's a book about the author Georges Sand and the pianist and composer Chopin, and this strange but true episode in their lives when they went and spent a winter living in Mallorca in 1838, I think it was. So it's about their relationship. But the twist is that we see this through the eyes of a 14th century ghost who's kind of lives in haunts, but no, haunts is too kind of like ghosty. The disused monastery where they stay, where their lodgings are. wonderfully peculiar, quite interesting about people, about art, about it. Kind of packs a lot in, and it's quite a sensual book in a way that I enjoyed. I think the front cover really kind of like fits the book. There you go. Definitely one that I missed in 2022, and I'm glad I kind of came back to, thanks to Kay. So now we're on to the top 3, and what were my top 3 books of the month? And 2 of these, as it happens, are currently on the Women's Prize for Fiction long list, and one of those was Western Lane by Chetna Maroo. Now, I was kind of cheating in reading that because that is actually Tilly and I's April choice for the new fiction that we were going to read and discuss. So, but I read it at the very end of March, and she read it at the very beginning of April, and we've recorded our discussion, and I'm going to stick that up later this week. So I don't, in a sense, I don't want to preempt that by saying too much about Western Lane. What I will say is it is short but special, I thought. Interestingly, I've been seeing other people sort of talking about it lately, particularly because it's on the Women's Prize long list, and wildly different opinions. Quite a few people have DNF'd it, even though it's only 100 and something pages long. I don't understand that, or saying that it was boring. I can't imagine how anyone could find it boring. I found it really sort of emotionally acute, but it's not. It's quite subtle in how it does that, and maybe that was the issue. I don't know, but But I guess the wonderful thing is that we don't all have to like the same books, do we? I loved it. Someone else hates it. I hated The Bee Sting. Lots of people loved that. That's okay. But yeah, personally, I thought it was brilliant. The second one that is on the Women's Prize long list that I read this in March has, I think, got more universal kind of positive views expressed about it, and that's Soldier Sailor by Claire Kilroy. Now, I chose to read this particularly in March because March was also the Irish readathon. Oh, which reminds me, I meant to say the other readathon that I was sort of taking part in quietly was Fierce Reads, and that's books by women and about women. And you probably notice an awful lot of things I read this month were by women and about women, but Briefly A Delicious Life was definitely one that kind of fitted the bill for that, and so does Soldier Sailor, and so does the one that all my top 3 kind of fit with that. Anyway, but Soldier Sailor fitted with the Irish readathon, and always loved reading Irish fiction. I think it's, for relative to its population, I think it probably produces the best fiction in English that's kind of out there. Why? I don't know. What's in the water, but it just seems it does, or certainly that appeals to me. Soldier Sailor is it's another short book. It's much more sort of intense and melodramatic, I suppose, than Western Lane. It's about the kind of first year or so of motherhood for the protagonist, and it's kind of stream of consciousness, which works because we're very much having her experiences, her perspective. You're seeing it all through her eyes. And she, ends up in a state of almost sort of psychological and physical collapse over that time, whilst at the same time having a kind of a fierce love for her baby. But she is struggling. And as I say, it is a bit extreme, I suppose, in how it describes it. I think as you read it, you can see that some of the things she's sort of saying about how her husband's behaving, or what she's doing. You can see that it's almost her distorted experience because of the way she's struggling. And you're with her in her stream of consciousness, but you can also look at that externally and think, oh well, maybe he is trying, and maybe it isn't quite like that, but and it resolves in a satisfying way, I would say. And I absolutely, as a I was going to say a former mother, they're still alive, but you know what I mean. There were lots of things that were acutely recognisable from my experience of being a sort of a first-time young mother. There we go. So, and that brings me to my top book of the month. And if you've seen the sort of single book review that I made about this and put out earlier in the week, you will know what book that is, my top book of the month. I think it is likely to be one of my top books of the year, and that is The Night Alphabet by Joelle Taylor. Now, Taylor is a poet, but this is her debut novel. I love her poetry, so I wanted to read the novel. Of course, it just came out. Here it is. I'm gonna wave it at you. This is the paper copy I had from the library, but I actually also listened to it as an audiobook read by Taylor herself, because she's a brilliant performer, and I knew that her delivery of the book would be tremendous. It's how to describe it. It's very hard to describe this book. You could loosely say that it is feminist speculative fiction. It's kind of a sequence of short stories that are interlinked in the same way, and alongside the way the tattoos on the body of our protagonist Jones her tattoos are interlinked over the course of the book. The overarching kind of story that pulls it all together made it really coherent for me. It's not sort of random short stories loosely linked. There are thematic and stylistic links throughout, but also, as I say, a strong connecting storyline that gradually is initially you're a bit at sea, and then it all comes together and makes sense, and a deeply satisfying whole. Again, if your interest is at all attracted by that, do watch my sort of standalone review of this book, because it's not going to be a book for everyone. But if you're the right kind of reader, it will absolutely be a stunning book for you. So that was my month in March. Say some ups and downs. Nothing that I read that was really disappointing. So, a strongly performing month's reading. What about you? Did you have any real kind of highlights in March that you could share with me? Things that I might like to read, or anything you want to warn me off because you read it but you think, I wish I hadn't read that. There you go. And meanwhile, I'm starting to really enjoy my April reading, which is very much shaped around People April.